Yo, what's up? Have you heard of Christy Mixie? I'm the bad guy. Now, our first foreign and underrated movie review will be on. Okay, so the next 3 days starring Russell Crowe. I seen this movie. Well, I was looking up movies to buy. I remember it was like usually on every Monday night. Every Monday night, I would go on Yahoo and I would check to see what movie coming out the next day. And this movie happens to be in the list, and I looked at the review, and the review that it showed was a lady in prison. She walked up to the phone and she screamed out "what" to the man sitting across from her. And the guy was setting her straight, and then he hung up. So after that, the scene ended. And I was thinking to myself, man, what happened after that? So instead of renting the movie, I ended up buying it. So the movie started out with a double date. Uh, the main couples and the other pair. The main couples are John and Laura. Uh, the most interesting topic of the scene was um, the women working under women or men working under women. And the woman from the other group, she was saying that women shouldn't work under women, nor should men work under women. So she told Laura that instead of working under her, she would rather work under her husband. And I think the more the conversation went on, the more the two argued to the point where it was about to be a cat fight. And when that's about to happen, they kind of went to the next scene, which was them going to the car. And, they said bye to the other couple. Well, I think the husband did. I don't think the wife said anything. Uh, well, I'm talking about John. John was speaking, and Laura was talking about the girl. And John was like, "Yeah, I told you that she don't know what she be talking about and all that type of stuff. That's not exactly what he was saying to her, but that's how it goes when you try to calm somebody down who's kind of hot by damn near agreeing with everything they saying. So when they got in the car, Laura reached over to the driver's seat and started making out with him to the point where she was climbing on top of him. And that scene right there shows you how affectionate Laura is. And if you have a woman like that in today's time, she's worth fighting for. Pretty much, she's worth dying for. Because today's women aren't that affectionate. But Laura, you'll say how lucky John is in that movie. So, let's see. They went home. Um, I think there was a babysitter that was watching over their son. So when John paid the babysitter, I think Laura was coming downstairs after checking on the baby. And then when the babysitter left, she gave him one of those 2 minutes and a half long worth of kiss. Excuse me. So that's Laura being affectionate again. And the next day, Laura was taking, I think you can see that she was a diabetic because she was taking shots. Well, she took a shot to her thigh or her hip. It was it was a scene where she was sitting down when she took the shot, and I think they had it where you can see it from behind Laura. So that was interesting because I was saying to myself when I saw that scene, she has to be a diabetic. She has to be a diabetic. So later, she went over to John and their son. Their son name is Jake, I think. Um, she took a group selfie with them. I think she does that on a daily basis because I think John said something about why you do this every day or something. But uh, anyway, she took the selfie with them, and then she was telling John about some errand that he has to run or something. And John was sitting with the boy, and they was bonding, having their father-son bonding. And he was telling the boy that, you see what she's doing? She's driving the wedge between us, stuff like that. Now, I'm kind of familiar with that kind of relationship because at that age, my dad did some stuff like that with me. And I was thinking my mom was the bad guy when I was little. And, you know, you grow out of it when you get older. So that was pretty interesting that you saw that in the movie, well, that I saw that in the movie. So later came the arrest scene. Uh, Laura saw blood on her leather jacket, and she was walking to the bathroom to try to wipe it off or wash it off. She had it over the sink, and she was running water over it. And then there was cops at the front door. John opened it, and the guy was holding up a warrant, saying that he has a warrant for Laura's arrest. So he was trying to see what the hell was going on, and then his partner, which was a female, she was leading the cop around the house to Laura. So they got Laura. John was confused. The baby was crying. Even he was saying "mama," which was interesting because that's the only time the baby ever acknowledged his mom in the entire movie. uh, so let's see. The first prison visit. That scene was the only scene that he brought their son to see her. So they when they was in the visitation room or whatever, Laura was trying to talk to her son first, and John wasn't paying her, not John, Jake. He wasn't paying her no attention. He was too busy playing with toys or whatever he was doing. And, she was giving him compliments and kissing him and whatever. And it didn't bother him. So she went over to John and she was like, I wonder if he's ever going to kiss me again. And then she brought up, he needs to run for mayor or he needs to run for governor. I think governor was it. Because she don't want 20 more years of no sex. So I'm guessing she was already there for a day, at least a day, for her to say 20 years of no sex. 20 more years of no sex. So, knowing her husband is not into politics, I don't think. I think she know her husband well enough, but I think she just said that to throw that out there. Like I said, man, Laura very affectionate. And I think she's like probably in her late 30s or mid 40s, somewhere around that age range. And she still wants sex. Like I said, she's worth dying for. And women like that, she probably do needs her sex. And the crazy thing about that probably would be that female prison probably don't get conjugal visit. Now, I don't know that 100, but the way that she just is saying that to him, you don't think women get conjugal visit like men do. So I guess it's probably tougher on females than it is on males when it's in prison. Because I haven't seen one female prison where they get conjugal visit. One female prison-based movie, rather. I hadn't seen not one where the female was getting conjugal visits. But I hadn't even heard about it either. So it must be true that they don't get conjugal visit like the guys. So next scene was the park scene. That scene is kind of important, not 100% important, but it's in there. John wanted to take his son and go home, and I think he was putting on his jacket or whatever. And then there was this other lady. She was trying to take her daughter and go home. But when she asked her daughter to go home, she made a scene. And they looked at each other and smiled or chuckled, whatever. I think it was an uneasy chuckle. I think the woman was kind of embarrassed or something. So then we go to the next scene, which was the court scene. The court scene, John was talking to the lawyer. And the lawyer was like, okay, we're going to have to forget that Laura is your wife. Let's look at the evidence for a second. The evidence is stacked against you. Your wife was the last person seen leaving the crime scene. She have her fingerprint on the murder weapon, which was a fire hydrant, where she had to move because it was sitting right in front of her front tire. It was something else that he said. It was the fingerprint last seen. It was something else he said. Oh yeah, the blood on her jacket. And also the two they were seen having a argument. So that's really the key factor, them having an argument. And when one other person end up dead of the argument, that's kind of implemented her to being the killer. So that's what the lawyer was trying to explain to John, but John knows his wife too well, and he wouldn't believe it. He knows she wasn't gonna do anything like this. She's not capable of killing anybody, and if she did, how would she go and have dinner if she just done that? Because this happened, the crime happened prior to them having dinner. And he asked his lawyer, how could she have dinner if she just killed somebody? I don't know. I don't know that argument would hold up in court. But the lawyer wasn't hearing it. So John realized that he was probably going to have to go get a second opinion, because he really believed that his wife didn't do it. So he stormed out, and the lawyer was kind of upset at him and himself or whatever. He was trying to call him back in the office or in the courtroom. That was it. Okay, so Oh yeah, it was something about a credit card. If the killer used the woman's credit card, they could have ruled robbery out or something. They could have ruled out Laura being the killer or something. Hmm. I don't know, the credit card was stolen too, but if it was stolen, it wasn't used. So with it not being used, Laura has not been off the hook. So the next scene would be he went back to prison. Laura saw that John was, he had the phone up to his ears and he didn't look too excited. And she sat down and she started crying. And I think she cried for a whole minute and then she got up and went back to her cell. Uh, I don't know what about John holding the phone up to his ears, wait for her to pick up to say something to her, that she knew that she wasn't going home. I kind of studied that scene and I just didn't get it. But I guess she know him well enough. I guess that's the best way to put it. So John went to his parents. I think he went to his parents' house. I think it was his parents' house. Um, they was waiting on John and Laura to come back because you can see they had the banners up saying "Welcome home" or "Welcome back," and John he just walked in and closed the door. So after the door was closed, they know that she wasn't out there coming in, and he looked it kind of upset as well, because sometimes when people come in, they'll close the door and say, "Guess who's outside?" or stuff like that, crazy shit. But that didn't happen, so they pretty much knew that she wasn't coming. And the two couples from the beginning of the movie was also there. They was waiting on her. You could see that the woman that she was gonna fight, she was kind of upset and sad that Laura wasn't getting out. And I'm guessing at first you would say it's kind of strange that she feel bad about it, but I kind of realized that they have that sisterly type of relationship. They love each other, but they always fighting. Like they will fight each other to the death or whatever. But if you try to jump in and try to help one of them, then that person gonna turn on you. Yeah, I guess that's that kind of relationship they have. So it's a good relationship, I guess. I I had that kind of relationship with somebody where we don't have that relationship anymore. So let's go to the next scene. Not the next scene, but the next part of my notes. Um, so later that night, John got a phone call saying that his wife was attempting suicide. So there's this hospital scene where he was yelling out his wife's name, trying to see where she was, and there was two nurses was trying to stop him and talk him out of trying to visit her. And it was like they was playing touch football or something, because he was running one direction and then he was getting cut off and he was turning around like this and going the opposite direction. And it was kind of, I wouldn't say funny, but it was kind of strange. Then the doctor shows up and the nurse was telling the doctor that the person he was trying to see was a transfer from prison and she's not allowed visitors. So he told the doctor that he just needed 2 minutes. And the doctor agreed and he said, okay, only 2 minutes. So when he went in the room, he saw that Laura tried to slit her wrist, and he walked up to, I think he walked, I don't know, he walked up to the to beside her, or he walked up behind the, in front of the bed. Laura kind of gained conscious, and she saw John and tried to go back to sleep or something. I guess looking at John reminds her that everything that she can't have, she really didn't want to see him or have nothing to do with him. So that was a sad scene if you put yourself in his shoes, knowing that your affectionate wife doesn't want to see you again. So next is let's see. Okay, he was doing a research on a guy who escaped prison a lot. So the guy he was looking for was Damon Pendleton. He was reading his article, I think it was called Over the Walls, and he looked. I think he was looking at how he was escaping prison. I think he was telling his story on escaping prisons multiple times. And then they had his picture and they had his location. Now, I'm guessing the guy is not on the run anymore, because if he was still on the run, his location wouldn't be posted online. So his location says Brooklyn. So the guy have to drive from Pittsburgh to Brooklyn to get more information about his article. So when he gets to Brooklyn, I think they was at a coffee shop or a cafe. I don't know, maybe a mini bar or something. They was having a conversation. He set down his tape recorder, and he pushed play, and he asked him, "How was you able to escape prison so many times?" And the guy was like, "Well, you're gonna need heart." Well, heart wasn't the word he said, but he said another word. But he says you're gonna need guts. You're gonna need a lot of it, and then you're also gonna need to study the cop routines. The it wasn't routine. It was another word he used. It might have been routine. Anyway, you have to study their moves, and you have to find the key and all that type of stuff. And then he also was telling him about the checkpoints. He asked him where he's from, and when he told him he was from Pittsburgh, he laughed. And he said that Pittsburgh is pretty tough. They can have the city locked down in like 15 minutes. In D.C., they can do it in 10 minutes because of 9/11. So he also was telling him, about the checkpoints, how he has 15 minutes for a 20-mile radius or something like that. So that's the first checkpoint he has to bypass. And then there's another checkpoint would be 45 minutes. And that could be, I don't know. But that's the last checkpoint. If he get past that checkpoint, that's it, because there's not going to be another one. So he was telling him he has he has to do a lot of looking around. He has to do something that gonna cause the guards to stop doing their daily routines, because when they comes out of their routine, they get uncomfortable. But when they're in their routine, they are comfortable because they're comfortable doing the same stuff over and over. So that's what he was telling them. So afterwards, whenever he was done telling him how he was able to escape prison so many times, he asked him how much was in his wallet. So he pulled out his wallet, he opened it up, and the guy just snatched everything that was in his wallet. He looked at him, he laughed, and he told him good luck, and then he was walking out. Now, another thing that I forgot to mention was he happened to turn himself in multiple times too, because he never stayed on the run, because he did tell him that the easiest part is breaking out, but the hard part is staying free. So the guilt wet kind of bugged him when he was free, because he had to worry about the day, well, not the day, but the night he goes to sleep, the people started kicking down his door. So he just turned himself in. Now, I'm not the smartest person ever, but when you escape jail, especially as many times he say he did, I think there's more sentence added to your sentence, right? There's more time added to your sentence. And for him to do it that much and for him to be free already, he must have did that shit when he was real young. Because they usually give you like plus 10 or something like that. But anyway, let's see. So he started touring the city, and he was sightseeing by helicopter, and you could see him taking a picture of a guy on the roof, and the guy on the roof was wearing, I think, a orange jumpsuit, one of those prison jumpsuit. And I think he was either sweeping, he was doing something. He had something in his hand. He was working with it, and I guess he was probably thinking he could take the helicopter out of the city, and good thing he didn't stick with that plan. Let's see, what else? Oh yeah, he was learning how to Photoshop. There was a guy. He was telling him about the lasso tool, and I used to do Photoshop back in 2013 to about 2016. And one thing I'm familiar with what the guy said was the lasso tool. And what the lasso does, it allows you to cut out things from a picture and move it to a different background. Because the lasso, you could, do just like this, and then you can cut it out. And that's exactly what he was learning. So then he went home. He started photoshopping his pictures. He was photoshopping his son pictures. He was photoshopping his own picture. Then he was photoshopping Laura's picture. And Laura's picture was the only picture he had where she was like not by herself. His picture and his son picture, they was by themselves. I'm sure that his son was by himself, but Laura, her picture was from a group photo, so he had to take her out of the group photo. Now, I guess he was fortunate enough that the picture he found, Laura wasn't the one holding the baby. He was holding the baby in that picture. So if she was holding the baby, it probably would have been problematic, because you can't actually Photoshop what's in front of them. I mean, you can, but it's going to be noticeable. Okay, so the next thing he was trying to do was take those Photoshop pictures and take them to somebody to use them to make passports. So the first person he went to was RZA. I think that was RZA from the Wu-Tang Clan. I'm not sure that's him or not, but that's who I think it is. So he went and he bought some drugs from the guy, and then he decided to ask him where could he go to get passport made. And when he asked that question, he told him to fuck off. So he went to his car. He threw the rocks on the seat, on the passenger seat, and then he started to think. So after a few seconds, the guy started tapping on his window, and then he told him to go to this hotel and look for a dude named Moose. So he went to this hotel, which doesn't look like a hotel, and he was walking around, and he asked a bartender or somebody, "Where's Moose?" And he gave him this head gesture, and he saw a guy shooting pool, most likely by himself or something. So he walked to him, and he had to walk past this Arab guy from behind who noticed him. So this Arab guy who noticed John was walking past him, he was talking to some chick. And instead of talking to this chick, he started paying him some attention. So, where should I go with this? Okay, so he went to Moose. He went to Moose, and he was asking him about getting his passport made, and he asked him who sent him. So he told him who sent him, and he was like, "Okay, let's follow me." So he took him outside, and the Arab guy that was watching him, he was gonna go outside too. So he actually left the girl he was talking to and picked up his helmet, and that was it. They didn't show where he was going or anything else. We just know he just picked up his helmet when he was standing up. So when they went outside, John got jumped by the drug dealer and Moose. And he got his passport money stolen and his life threatened. And then the two guys ran off. So the next scene was his mom was patching him up, and she was asking him how did he end up getting into a fight, and he was like, the excuse he used was he was defending Laura because she's innocent. And then that started a fight with him and his mom, and he got up from from a chair that he was sitting in. I don't know if it was a chair or a stool, but he got up, got his son, and left. So he was driving home from his mom's house, and then you can see there's somebody following him on a motorcycle. Now, for some reason, I don't know why they didn't look for him at his mom's house. How did they know that he doesn't stay there? Because that probably would have been the first thing to do, was to knock on that door if you was looking for him, especially if you don't know the person or where they live. So I kind of got thrown off by that. So when he went home, the Arab guy was knocking on his door. So when he kind of looked out in the window and saw it was somebody he didn't know, he grabbed his baseball bat and cracked the door. And the guy was like, "I know what you want. I was at the bar." And he was like, "I can read lips. I'm deaf." So I guess whatever he was telling him kind of got through to him that he didn't need the baseball bat and the guy can be trusted. Okay. So he went outside and he told him what he needed, and the guy told him they were going to be like $1,200 or $1,500. And the guy was like, "That's too much for a passport." And he was like, "It's real expensive if you don't have them." Now, I have my passport. I don't remember paying that much to get a passport, ever. and I mean legally, get a passport done. So why'd you have to pay that much to get a fake one made? That didn't make sense to me. But okay. Uh, then after that, there was another guy was outside his window. He was looking in, and then he put his helmet on and peeled off or whatever. So the next scene, I believe, he went to buy a gun, and then he started ditching work. Now, he has one of those convenient jobs. He's a college professor. So his job allows him to, I ain't gonna say allows him, but it gives him a lot of freedom. He can ditch work whenever he wants, and he can use his job as an excuse to dump his son off at his parents' lap. So he would start doing a lot of that in the movie. Now, the reason why he was ditching work so much and dumping off his son is he's planning to break his wife out of prison. So he's going to need to study the routines of the med lab, the med lab van, and some more things. So the first thing, he learned to do a bump key. He was watching a YouTube video on how to make a bump key. So he was making a bump key while watching the video, and then later he tested it out on his front door, and it worked. So later he went to prison to see Laura, I guess. He went to prison to see Laura, and he was in line with more visitors, and he gonna use his bump key on a random keyhole in a hallway. So I guess I can see where his plan was with the bump key, but it really backfired on him, because when he tried to use the bump key, it got stuck. So he had to hurry up and break the key off and kick it down the hallway. Now I found a lot of holes in that scene. One thing, you're not gonna break no key off in like 5 seconds. I've actually had to get a key unstuck for a lot of females who had their keys stuck. And yes, it's possible, but I mean, a lot of times you can feel the key is gonna break or come off if you tussle with it too hard or for too long. But it's not gonna take 5 seconds. And he was able to do it before he had to move with the line and then kick it down the hallway, which supposed to draw him attention, because in a prison full of cops and security guards, they know how to follow that sound and know where that sound came from, or where that key was kicked from. I didn't get that, and then they was oblivious to everything. I mean everything. I think everything is the best thing to say, because I don't want to go down the line and go one by one on this and that. So when they went into a checkpoint, the buzzer was going off. His bump key was discovered, because I think the lady was gonna try to put her key in his hole but couldn't, because his bump key got stuck in there. So then the next scene happened to be one of the guards was having a conversation with all the visitors to see where they was in the camera. And well, fortunately for him, their camera had bad quality, so John was able to point anywhere on the screen and say where he was instead of where he actually was. Now, that guy was like, so you mean to tell me this not you right here in the camera in the back? And he actually pointed at him because the guy he pointed at was facing the wall trying to, use the bump key. And he was like, "No, I was in this area over here. You want to tell me what this about?" And then the cop kind of looked at him like, "You want me to tell you what this is about?" And the dude had a pretty strong poker face, and he was like, "Yeah." Like, he really didn't know what was going on. So the guy was like, "You know what a bump key is?" And then he threw down his bump key where he kind of slided across the table. And he was like, "If this is you, I'd be careful about what's going to happen to my kids if both their parents in prison." And the guy took heed to those words to the point where he got sick in the stomach. And you could see that he was kind of walking fast. Like, he had to hurry up and get outside. Because exactly when he got outside, he was throwing up over the balcony or some shit. Or maybe over the porch. Or it wasn't like he was on ground level because he had to hold on to some rails. Well, not to some rails. He would hold on to the railings and started throwing up. And the guy he happens to walk past was one of the arresting officers with his partner. And yeah, the partner that he was with was this female who happens to be there in the arrest scene where she was leading the charge through the house to get Laura. So he met them again. Well, he didn't meet them again, but they saw him. You know what? It wasn't they, because the lady didn't really pay him no attention because she was trying to talk to her partner who was focusing on him. And he was looking like he didn't, like, he know this guy from somewhere. Like, where did I know this guy from? And that was kind of an interesting scene that he saw him and he was like, "I remember this guy." So I guess he didn't pay him any attention afterwards, and that was like the end of that scene. Uh, let's see. Okay, now, uh, hmm. So he was meeting his crush again. Now there was a lady who had a crush on him. Remember the lady at the park scene who had this daughter who made a scene and they kind of looked at each other and smiled? Well, she's at the park again and she just happened to be there when he was there. So I guess she saw that he's a very, very involved dad. And I guess that kind of turned her on to him or something. So his son asked him for his cookies. So he gave him his cookies after he asked him some questions. And he went and gave the cookies to this girl, which happens to be the daughter of that lady. So she used that as an excuse to hit on John. Or not to hit on John, but to shoot her shot or to kick off a conversation. So she was offering John out to dinner, and John was against it. And like I said, she used the cookies as an excuse to shoot her shot. So she said, "Okay, we owe you for the cookies." And he was like, "Okay, I guess you're right." So she had him right there. Right there, she had him. Then she was telling John about her daughter's birthday party. and she would love for them to come, and she would like to meet his wife. Now, a lot of people know what that means when somebody say, um, "I would like to meet your wife," or anything with "wife" in a sentence. Cause I use that kind of conversation on females a lot about saying stuff about their boyfriend when I'm just meeting them, just to see that they say they have a boyfriend or not. And that's basically what she just did there. So uh he he told her that I forgot what he said. He told her that she's not in the picture. So she put her foot in her mouth by saying, "Oh, okay, it's all about priorities, I guess." And he was like, "No, no, 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 no. She's innocent. She didn't kill that woman." And then I think she said something else for her to put her foot in her mouth again. And like the more it went on, the more awkward she was starting to feel. And it came to the point where she just had to let him go. And the dinner that she worked so hard to get was, I mean, not dinner, but the date, the date that she offered him, she fought so hard for, and she just had to let it go. And you can see that she was kind of upset with herself because she gave that sigh, that she was blowing her breath like, she was doing that. So that was that went well, didn't it? Okay, so uh so we went to John studying the health lab route. Now the health lab route, uh he was I think he was like sitting outside of his car, and then he have like a stopwatch, and he like start the timer to see how long the guy was going to be in there and coming back out. So the next time the van is there, he'll know how long he need to be in there and and get back out. Let me make sure I'm not leaving anything in my notes. Okay, so he was also learning how to break in a van with a tennis ball. So I think he got like a flathead screwdriver, and he was burning a hole in his tennis ball. I don't know how. I think he probably got the screwdriver, the end of the screwdriver, hot to the point where he could just poke a hole through it. He wasn't doing it like this, but he was just went like that. So he used that tennis ball to break in the health lab van, and I guess he has to use the hole to go over the lock, and then he has to like hit it to get the van unlocked. Uh, you can see that he has to use 2 attempts to get it open. So he went in there. Uh, mm, he went in there, and he went to looking through the files, and then he saw his wife's file, and then he took a screenshot of it, and then he barely made it out because the guy was like, I think the guy was like right there when he got out. Uh, so later, he was on his computer. He was changing his wife's data sheets. Some things that say normal and abnormal, and one of them he changed the normal to abnormal. And you can see that on the on in the movie. And then he was checking on his son who was playing the Xbox 360. And then uh uh Oh yeah, and this is the scene where you know that Laura is a diabetic because when he was changing the data, you could see that it says diabetic on the screen or on the form. So he was going to use her medical form to break her out of prison. Cause I guess what he tried to do with the bump key wasn't gonna work. So breaking her out of prison is a hell no. So he gonna need to get her out of prison and break her out somewhere else, which was a genius thing to do. So he went back to prison, and this is where the roll credit comes. His wife told him that she's gonna be moved to a maximum security or to another prison in 3 days. So now he has to speed up his work. Now the pressure is really on him. So the first thing he tried to do was he tried to get his money out of the bank, and he wanted to take all of it out. So the lady was like, "That's not gonna happen, especially all in one day." So he wasn't hearing it. So I guess he left and he went back with his gun. I'm guessing he was gonna rob the bank and get his money and then some. Cause I think the guy that he went to visit about breaking out of prison, he told him that he's gonna need a lot of money. Uh, so he was just about to get out of his car, and then he saw that there was a woman pushing a baby into the bank. And then there was a security guard who opened the door for the lady for her to get in. So I guess those two things talked him out of it. So he decided not to rob the bank, which was smart because I think everything would have took a nosedive if he decided to rob the bank, especially with his face on camera. Because I don't think he had a mask or anything. He was just going to go in there. Uh, let's see, where am I on my notes now? Okay. So he went to pay Laura a visit. Now, his last visit went real sour. And Laura was, she was already detached from him, man. She was really, really, really pissed off and angry, upset, what have you. And John was like, I'm doing everything I can to prove your innocence and all that. And she was pissed off to the point where she just laughed at him, saying stuff like, you don't live in the same world as we do. Your dad was right about you. And I think that kind of hit a nerve. And he was like, okay, it's good to know that you and my dad are talking, stuff like that. So later on in the conversation, she started snapping on him about, you didn't even ask did I do it. Stuff like that. And how do you know I'm innocent? Stuff like that. Dumb shit. She picked a fight and she picked a fight. She said a lot of mean things and it didn't sit right with him. So there was a scene where he was supposed to go home, but he was kind of walking a little too slow. And the guard was like, yo, you gotta go, you gotta go. And then he made a complete stop. And then the cop kind of ran behind him and stepped in front of him like, you gotta go, you can't be here. And the dude looked at the cop and then the scene cut off, which was probably interesting, a lot interesting. So this where it takes us back to the scene that I saw on Yahoo where I told you about the visitation scene where she picked up the phone and she screamed what? And then the dude was like, I know you, you're my wife. I don't have to ask you if you did this and I would never believe you did it, you know, stuff like that. And I mean, he said some things to her that kind of set her straight. And she looked at him like she wanted to cry. And then dude left. So, let's see. Um, okay, so he went to revisit Moose. He was stalking Moose. So he realized that um, he could follow Moose to, I guess, the main supplier or the main dealer or something. Because I think he was sitting in his car like all night. And he was just had his car parked in some corner. And the guy was like driving around and driving around and driving around. And then I guess he decided to follow him. I don't know how he know when to follow him or when to just sit there, and I don't know when he know to sit there and wait, and then when to make his move. But he made his move to follow him, and the dude was driving a good piece. He was driving a long ass time, and I'm surprised he had enough gas to do that. Uh, so he followed Moose to the to one of those meth houses, and when the guy kind of opened the door, he made his move. So I think he charged in, grabbing Moose from behind or something, and and then I guess it was a big what's the word I'm looking for, predicament, because in the house they had a dog. So he ordered them to put the dog in the basement, take the dog in the basement. And then he asked another guy to go in the basement too, and they had to lock the basement from the outside. So the guy and the dog wasn't coming out. So, uh, what's next? So he was asking for the money. So Moose was throwing his money. I think Moose was shot somewhere in the process. Cause I think he wasn't getting up. Cause I think he took a bullet in the leg. I forgot when, but it's important to know that he was shot. So he was laying on the ground. He was throwing his little bit of money, and then the guy that he was robbing, he reached in his pocket and threw out his money too. And the dude was like, "Where's the rest of your money?" And the dude was like, "You think I'm gonna give my money to you?" And the dude was like, "Yeah." So he was gonna try to use one of those military tactics where they try to put, what the shit they do. It's the opposite of torture. So he wasn't going to torture him to do it, but he was putting he was putting the fire under him. He took what was it, some Hennessy or something, and he started pouring it on the ground. And he was like, "Dude, you're wasting some good shit here." And he was telling him like, "Yeah, how healthy this shit is." Um, and then he threw the bottle, and then he was gonna light the match. And the dude was like, "This is a meth lab." So, meth labs and fire don't mix in a good way. So he threw the match on the alcohol, and the fire started blazing. So the dude was trying to use some scare tactics or whatever to get him the rest of the money. So that kind of backfired on him because the dude was like, he had a kid upstairs. So he had to run upstairs to save his kid. And to my surprise, he let him go upstairs to save his kid. So dude was like, okay, I guess I'll go upstairs after him, but I'm not going up there by myself. I'm going to pick up this guy off the ground who is shot in the leg somewhere, and we're going upstairs to go check on this guy. So he went upstairs, and the dude came out from one of those rooms with a shotgun, or I think he came out with a shotgun. So the dude kind of dived to the ground, and then the dude came out. He was coming out the threshold, and that's when he shot and killed him. I guess he got lucky, because if he would have missed that shot, it probably would have been over, because he was laying on the ground with somebody on top of him. So there was no escaping the bullet that he had coming for him. So he hit him with a lucky shot and killed him, and he went and found the money. And he looked at Moose, and he was going to leave him in the burning house to die. And the guy begged him to take him with him, or at least to a hospital. So a man with compassion, he was taking him to the hospital. So he has to walk from the second floor to the first floor to his car with another guy on his shoulder and a bag of money in another hand. And then you can see that there was a guy in the basement. He was kicking his way out of the door, and when he got in the car, that's when the dog was at his car window, and then he had to peel out because the guy made it out of the house before it was too late. So he was shooting at his car. He had to reverse this car out of the driveway or whatever, or the neighborhood. And I think he crashed his car real bad in the process. And that was it for that scene. So this scene that we're coming to was the scene they played at the very beginning of the movie, where this guy was in the back seat, was crying to his dying breath. And he was like, he needs to go to the hospital. He needs to go to the hospital. He's not going to make it. So he was trying to take him to the hospital, and the dude didn't make it. I think he died before they even got to the parking lot. So when the dude died, I think he took him to a bus stop and just let him lay there. He just laid him across the bench and went on about his life. Let's see. Where am I on the notes? Okay. So, after that big scene he just had, he went to pick up his son. His son was at his parents' house, and I think his dad was going through his stuff, and his dad saw that he had some passports made, and his dad knew exactly what was going to happen. And to my surprise, his dad didn't say anything about him having fake passports in his bag. Maybe, I don't know. Maybe he was thinking that. No, of course not. Of course not. But he handed him his bag and his passports, and he didn't say anything to John. So later, I think we're on day 3. So day 3, uh, he was gathering a lot of things. He was gathering some things that he needed. He had like this shrine, like how cops have at their house or at their office. They have this maps and all these locations and pictures and all that. He had that in one of his studies or something. And I think he took like one last look and he started tearing everything down off the wall. And he told his son to get everything he needed. And his son was like, he wanted to take some Canadian coins with him. And he was like, he couldn't take the Canadian coins. He couldn't take the Canadian coins in the jar. He had to put them in his pocket or something. So that's what he did. He had like 2 full pockets. He had 2 full pockets of Canadian coins. So, uh, and he had like 4 trash bags, and he put, I think, 3 of them or 4 of them. I know. I don't know how many trash bags he had. It might have been 3. It might have been 4. So it could have been 2 trash bags was put in the trash cans around his house, or 3. And then he took the other one somewhere else and dumped it. And let's see. Then he had to he put the 30-minute, no, it was a 15 and 45 or 15 and 35 minute checkpoint on his wrist, but he just put 15 and then 45. So he was being prepared for, being on the clock. So he went to, let's see. Okay, so what else he did? He was driving around he was driving around Pittsburgh. He went to, I think, one of the clinics. I think it was the clinic, and he cut all the lines. And what else? The phone lines, because I think the lady, she was talking to somebody, and then you could see all the lights was turning red. And then he went off to dump the kid. Yeah, he dumped the kid off to the lady who has a crush on him, and apparently he was too early for the birthday party. So she wanted to use John to help her, do some things around the house to, help set up the place or whatever. But he told her that he had to run some errands. So he told her that he'll be back. So she let him go. Of course, she had to. What else? So he went over. I think he went over to the van again. I think sometime he went back in the van and put the files back in or something. Maybe that wasn't day 3. Maybe that was a day before or something, because there was a scene where the doctor saw that Laura had an abnormal case that need to be checked. So she was she was calling somewhere. She was trying to have one of the guys to let them know that she's on her way to the hospital because she need to check on this prisoner. So the guy couldn't get the lines going. So she had to meet them there, meet them at the clinic. So she said, "Don't worry about calling over there again. I'll just meet them there." So she was on her way to the clinic. John was on his way to the clinic, and Laura was on her way to the clinic. They all was on their way to the clinic, and John was kind of trailing the armored vehicle where she was being transported in, and then it got to the point where he kind of just overtaken them, passed by and decided to meet them at the clinic. So, let's see. Laura was there. When Laura got in there, the detective, I think the detective was already there when Laura got there, or maybe she came in late. But she was standing at the office desk, at the front desk, and she was looking at some files. I don't know, she was seeing something was wrong, seeing something different on one file and something different on the other file. But she was just standing at the desk. So let's go to the scene where the lady went to see Laura about the false report that she's gotten. So I think she was in there, Laura was in there, and I think 2 security guards was in there. And John happens to walk in a lab coat, and he had the gun pointed at pretty much the 2 security guards, and he told Laura to put on his jacket. He had a lab coat for her to wear. So this is the best part of the movie starts to happen when he's breaking her out. So he told her to put her lab jacket on. She wasn't going to do it. So he tossed her the cell phone and told her to call their son because he's outside waiting, and tell him that mom is not coming. And while you're at it, tell him that I'm not coming either. Because I think he had to have, I think he had these 2 security guards zip tied or something, handcuffed. He had them bound some kind of way. Because I think he had to fight them off of them because they was going to take the odds in their favor and, go against them. So the first person that went at John took a punch to the face, and then he pointed his gun at the other one. So he told somebody to tie them up. So that's why they're not doing anything at the moment. So Laura was forced to take off her clothes and put on the lab coats or whatever he gave her. So they was going to make a move. So the thing they did, they was going to run to the elevator. Now, the elevator scenes was probably the toughest thing they had to do, because the elevator scene, it's not that easy to escape if you don't know how they're planning to catch you. And somehow he knew how they was going to plan to catch him. So when he was in the elevator, he was trying to calm down a crying woman. She was kind of nervous because she's thinking that they both going to get killed because that's how they do it. If you're on a run for a certain amount of time, it's going to be a shoot to kill thing if they catch up to you. I guess that's how it is. So they was in the elevator, and before the door was able to close, I think one of the detectives was had came, and he was like, think about what you're doing. Think about what you're doing. You don't need to do this. They're going to shoot you. They're going to shoot you, stuff like that. And he wasn't hearing it. So he told Lord to hit the button while he pointed the gun at the detective. So, so now they're on the run. I think they're on the first floor. There was on the first floor. He kind of looked out. He threw the lab coats over to the parking lot somewhere, and went back into the elevator. And then I don't know where else they went. No. Yeah, they went in the basement area, so they wasn't in the first floor. So they was in the basement. So he went to the basement through the lab coats at a threshold that's going to take you to the parking lot. And then he went back into the elevator, probably went up to the first floor. So the detective who went to the basement to get him, he saw the lab coat that he threw and decided to go to the parking lot to catch him while they tried to make their escape through the first floor. So, so they went outside. I think he had told Laura to let her hair down, and he had put on his this cap, because I think they were wearing a different jacket, because the jacket he was wearing was blending in with the tourists. I think it was like a black and yellow jacket or something like that. So I don't think Laura had a jacket. She probably did, but she probably did. So what he was wearing, they wasn't gonna find him because they was blending in with the crowd. So they was gonna try to take the subway, and the detectives was hot on their ass. So he kind of looked down on one of those glass and saw that they was in the subway finna take the train out. So he saw that, and he rushed to the train station. He got on his walkie-talkie saying that he want those trains stopped. So apparently his message didn't get through. So he actually had to get on the train track and run the train down. And the guy, he was on the train track on foot. And I was kind of worried about him being on that train track running because he could easily injure himself there. So John and Laura, they was on the train. And John, knowing John being a man of capacity, he told the kid to hold on to something. And when he did, he opened the door, the door in the train, which forced the train to stop. So they jumped out of the train and they went to the parking lot to where one of the rental cars was sitting at. Was it his car or the rental car? Because I think it was probably his car. But anyway, it was a car that was there waiting on him. So John had to find the fence that he slit. He had cut a hole in, and he had to find that, and he had to help Laura get up there first. So I think he was pushing her up, and then he had to climb up himself. And I think the detective was like 5 minutes behind the train or something, because when he got to the train, they was long gone. And he was able to see where they went. And he asked, uh, it was later on in the scene when he asked, where's his kid? Because they had a feeling that they're gonna take their kid or something. I don't know. So he asks, how old is his kid? Okay, find where the kid is. So John and Laura, they was in the car. There was no high speeding on the highway, and Laura was looking for the kid and saw the kid wasn't in the car, and she said something about, why didn't you tell me? And he was like, if I told you, you would have tried to stop me. So, so he told her to look in the glove compartment and you would find everything that you wanted. He even had everything listed down to the last detail. Her makeup and all that other shit. And when she looked in there, he saw everything that was in place. And she looked at him like, I can't believe this guy. You're just too perfect. And that's like one of the things she hate about him. And when she saw that he had everything perfect to the last detail, she just kind of shook her head at him. Okay, let's see. Um, okay. Okay, so I kind of skipped a lot of things in my notes. Now, the reason why the detective was on John, because they found a tail light, a broken tail light at the crime scene where John burned down the meth lab. So they ran the tail light, and the detective was like, okay, now show me, not show me, but find how many prisoners who owns a Prius or something. And the report came back, there was a Prius owned by 2 felonies. So one felony was a rapist, and another felony was a murderer. So the first person he wanted him to check was the rapist. So the report came back to him that the rapist was a paraplegic. So that ruled him out. So he was like, okay, where's the murderer? And then he said that the murderer was being transported to the hospital. And he was like, when? Now? And he was like, yeah, right now. So that's when he realized that he need to go to the hospital or to the clinic. Let's see, where else? Yeah, the murder's in jail, and guess who the murderer is? So, okay. So that's all the notes I've taken, so I guess I'm going to try to shoot this one out. Now, after finding out that John had everything down to the last detail, John was going to go to his parents' house to pick up his son, to find out that his son wasn't there. So he came back to the car, and Laura was like, where's Jake? Where's Jake? I thought you said Jake was here. And he was like, I guess I was wrong. So we have to go to the zoo because this lady has our son. And he was like, a woman? But I think the word she said was she. But she? Yeah, he's at a birthday party. So, um, I think he already passed the 15-minute checkpoint and he has to try to get by the 45-minute checkpoint. So he has to make a lot of detours. He has to try to get his son before the 45 minute is up. And when Laura saw that he missed a turn, Laura was going to commit suicide by just letting herself fall out of the car. Now, this is probably where the best scene in the entire movie comes, where he was he had the car, and the car swerved, having all kinds of near misses on the interstate. I think they even had a near miss with a truck, and he had to swerve the car and hold on to Lloyd, keeping her from falling out of the car at the same time. And at the same time, he was hitting the brakes, and the car was just it, it was just spinning out of control. And I I, I guess at this point that she really loved her son. She really loved her son, and she don't see her. She just don't see herself living without him, which is not a bad thing. Um, but it's just that John was on a tight schedule and he was barely making it out. And Laura was like, "No, this is not gonna happen. I would die if I'm not gonna have my son." So John had to do all of that. And then I think the truck driver that almost hit him, he had stepped outside of his truck and looked down to see if they was all right. So John stepped out of his car and he waved at the truck driver, and he waved back and got back in his truck. So they went over to the zoo, and he got the boy and they left. And then Laura said that she wanted to sit in the back seat with her son. So um, John's crush was outside too. I guess she wanted to talk to him, and she saw that John's wife was in the back seat. So she saw. Well, I ain't gonna say she saw. She knew right there that she should just leave him alone. So later, John he went over. I think he was like driving around the city, and I think he was looking. I think he was looking for extra people, because there was a scene where the detective that he saw at the hospital, he had a phone call that somebody important was late for something because he was stopped, and the guy was apologizing, saying that I'm sorry that this happened to him, but I did not tell them to stop every car. I just told them to stop the car with with a couple and a child. So later, there was a checkpoint. And this checkpoint was like at a toll booth or something. And there was like two cops there. And they was like both looking in the car, letting them go, letting them go, letting them go. And later, like when they got out, you saw that they had another couple in the car with them. They were like elderly couples. And so that was smart thinking. I had no idea how he knew that they were just going to look for a couple and a child. But I guess the fact that they didn't have his description yet, because I think he said that at a certain amount of time they would have their description, but they won't have their picture. So the picture didn't come to them at the time. So they had to go with the description. So they was able to bypass them having a description of them by having two other people in the car with them. So having the other two people in the car with them, they was able to bypass that bypass that final checkpoint. So he dropped them off, and then they went over. They went off to the airport. Now the airport scene where it's starting to get better. Um, One of the detectives, they had went to John's house, and they had went to the neighbors. I think they started questioning the neighbors, and one of the neighbors saw that John was throwing away some trash. So the guy looked in the trash can and saw the trash that John put in the trash bag. I mean, not the trash bag, in the trash can, and he looked at it and saw that it was like a shrine. So he was like, okay, this is good evidence. So I'm taking this back to the station and start working on it. So when he got to the station and started, pouring it down pouring it down on the table, everybody, well, not everybody, but the two other detectives, the two arresting detectives that was in the arrest scene at the beginning of the movie, they starting to help him. So, mm, so right now they have a really, really, really big lead. So with this crucial evidence, they were certain they was going to stop him. So meanwhile, John and Laura and the child, they was at the airport. And John was a bit too nervous. He was shaking, and Laura saw it, and by that time, Laura done calmed down. So she was like, okay, I'll handle this. Just give me the passport. So she got the passport, and she led. She was leading. So she went to the security guard who was waiting for them to hand over their passports and their plane tickets. So he looked at them and looked at the screen, because that's like a wanted screen. They had like different photos of people that's wanted, and apparently their picture's not up there yet. So he looked at that screen, looked at their passport, looked at them, and let them go. And then when they left, the other cop had they had left. I mean, not the other cop, they had left, but the the security guard had left as soon as they walked past. I guess another guy was taking over that shift, or he was going on a lunch break or something. So I guess it was valuable for him to leave, because if he would have sat there any longer and saw that their picture popped up on that screen and he just let them go, they wasn't going anywhere. But they were just that lucky, which probably the part of the scene where that's gonna drive a lot of viewers, like saying stuff like the movie is just way too convenient for the main character, just too convenient for him. Come on, in real life, man, come on, show us how they would have, stuff like that. But I guess they couldn't, so they went with that route. So they was standing at the line waiting to board the airplane. And meanwhile, at the police station, the guy was like, I just don't know what this building is right here. And the guy was like, I just can't wrap my head around this picture. And then another guy was like, I know exactly where this is. And then he stormed out of the office and he went to the lead detective and he was like, I know where they're going. And he was like, okay. Because the lead detective was playing with one of those Canadian coins that he had picked up from their house when he was, when they was looking for him. Apparently, the son had dropped one of the Canadian dollars when he was putting them in his pocket. So he took one with him, or he took it with him. So uh, he went to the phone and he told the guys at the airport to hold the lines, and they went over to look for the three suspects and didn't find them. And he was like, no, they're there. And he was like, no, they're not. We checked. We got the description. We got the picture. We got all that. They're not there. And then the guy was like, okay, so is there any more flights to Haiti tonight? And the answer came back negative. So apparently they were thinking they was going to Haiti because of the picture, that one picture, or was it one picture? Well, the one picture that they were confused about. So they wasn't going to Haiti. So that was cleverly used by John to throw them off so they could make a clean escape to wherever they was going. And they had their parents in interrogation too, because I think there was a scene where they asked both the parents, where are they? And they don't know, because John really doesn't talk to his parents like that. So they couldn't help him. And knowing that the dad saw the plane tickets, and he still withheld information from the cops. And I thought that was an honorable thing to do. I really did. So they was flying to wherever they was flying to at the end of the movie, and I think they was flying to a third world country. Because if you're running away from the law, you would go to a third world country because your money will last longer in a third world country. So it was a happy ending. They managed to escape all the odds with a lot of critical thinking, with a lot of luck, and it was more luck that played a role than critical thinking. And I think later on at the end, his dad went to was it his study? I think he went to his study at his house, and he had picked up a globe, and he started turning that globe to what's the name of that place? It was a spot, or did he look it up online? No, it was a brochure. I think he did some kind of research at the end, and it showed that they went to Guantanamo, somewhere in Mexico. Um, I can't remember how it ended. I mean, not how it ended, but I can't remember how. Did he go online? Did he look at a brochure? Did he use a globe? It was something. But that's my overall review. The movie is highly underrated, and it happens to be my first movie review. Oh goodness. And happens to be one of my favorite movies ever because nobody talks about it. Nobody praise it. Nobody gives it the praise it deserves. And because of that, that became one of my favorite movies, and I just had to do a review on it. And later on, I might do another review on this movie if I learn how to use video clips. But right now, I'm just doing this by phone and uploading it. So, out of 10, I would probably give this movie a 8 because of all of the holes it had in the movies, like the bump key and some more stuff that I couldn't wrap my head around. Some of the logic kind of fell off with me. It didn't sit right with me. So that's my movie review on the next 3 days. My next movie review would probably be a foreign movie review. The foreign movie might be Sector 7. Or it might be another movie review that's underrated, and it's going to be Brooklyn's Finest. So it might be one of those two movies. Brooklyn's Finest or Sector 7 going to be my next movie review. Peace.